holy and beautiful Creator. Now may the words of my mouth and the meditations of our hearts be ever pleasing to you, O God. Amen. Well, there's a game that we used to play at camp. I think it's still being played. And it is a game that you would play with your campers when they first got there to camp. Nobody knows each other, and it's called an icebreaker. You got to break the ice so that they can start feeling more comfortable with each other in this new environment. It was called Leader. You would get into a circle, sitting down on the floor or standing up, and you would choose one person quietly, silently, without anybody else knowing, to step out of the circle. Then the rest of the circle, you'd have to decide one leader. Then that one leader had to create a pattern, clapping their hands, clicking their fingers, tapping their thighs, any kind of pattern. And whenever they changed the pattern, everybody else had to change along with them. You had to do this in a way that nobody knew who the leader was. So don't look them directly in the eye. Kind of look off to the side and figure out what the next pattern is. Then the new person would step into the center and walk around, turn around, and try to figure out who the person was that was starting the pattern. Who was the leader? The goal was to try to hide the leader and make sure everybody was doing the same pattern at the same time. They would get 3 guesses, and sometimes they would guess it correctly, and other times they would guess it incorrectly. When we enter new people into the church, we have a pattern of life that we've already been going through. Like Vicar Rick said last week, this church has been going on for 171 years. We've got things that we like to do in certain order. How do we enter in new people? How do we become welcoming? What is the pattern of life that we are asking people to pick up? Are there new patterns that they will present to us that might help us be more welcoming? How do we change as new people come into our circle? The woman in our gospel story this morning is very much an outsider. She is trying to break into the newness of this Jesus ministry that she's heard of, but she is well outside of what the common culture was for Jesus. Yet she seems to understand almost completely who God is. She is of Gentile birth. She lives outside the law of Moses. How can she know this? She is a descendant of the ancient enemies of Israel. She is a woman, unaccompanied by a man. She initiates conversation. How dare she? Not waiting to be called on by Jesus. She says to him, "Sir, man of healing, Messiah of the people of God, will you come and heal my sick daughter who is bound by a demon?" "No, not yet," he says. "First I must go and minister to those who are called the people of God. Those are the Israelites. I must go and share with them first before I can come and feed you Gentile dogs." She looks at him surprised. "Dogs?" She responds back to Jesus with a very thought-out response, flipping his statement to him upside down. "But sir, isn't there an abundance? Don't you speak about an abundance of God? There's an abundance of love, abundance of space. Everyone's welcomed in this place. Haven't you healed many others? Are you not here to offer life to more than just the Israelites? Are you not here to also minister to the Gentiles? Do we not fit into your mold? For even a dog who is allowed to sit under the chair of a child is allowed to pick up and eat the crumbs that fall on the floor. Am I not any better than that?" Why then can the Gentile dogs, which you call us, not even have the crumbs that fall? Why do you not care for us? Does your God not care for us? There is an abundance, isn't there? Isn't there enough? Are we not even worthy of the crumbs of this love of God? Are we not asking for a seat at the table? Just a place on the floor? Can we at least have that? If I was Jesus, I would feel horrible. Of course you can have that. What was I thinking? Jesus is stunned by her complete understanding of who God is, so much more understanding than even his disciples have sometimes. And only just a few days ago did Jesus feed 5,000 people with just 12 baskets, and that came up with 12 baskets left over of bread. He had an abundance at that time. Why did he not understand that abundance continues to carry beyond the borders of these people of God? She, the Gentile, is beginning to make Jesus understand that the mission of God is greater and wider. She is the one that is changing him. It's weird to think that God would change because we've been told so often that God is stagnant. God does not change. But maybe God does change. Maybe God does hear our prayers and our woes and continues to go into our lives and decide how to love us and care for us the best way. Maybe Jesus at this time does understand that at some point the Gentiles will know God, but it's not time yet. And she knocks on the door and says, it's time right now. We deserve this love. At this moment, she is speaking the words of God to Jesus. It is not as if Jesus was not going to go to the Gentiles, but it seems that it wasn't his time quite yet. And this Gentile woman of Syrophoenician order, born outside of the walls of the accepted social norms of Jesus' culture, is now blowing up the cultural norms. She is the one that is changing the world. She understands God. She understands the oppression that she has faced in her life, and she knows what it means to show mercy to others. She knows what it means to go out and try to fight for her daughter. She has experienced the hard realities of life. Jesus said to the woman, "You're right. I'm wrong. The scope and scale of this mission of God is much greater than I could even understand, and you have helped me see it. Go home, woman. Your daughter is healed." And now these words make us understand that the Gentiles have now created this whole new mission for Jesus to go to. Somebody totally outside of his realm of understanding is breaking open the door and saying, "You must come to me. Woman, your daughter has been made well." And she seems to go home and understand the mission of God more than ever before. And she probably tells everybody in the Gentile territory all about this Jesus person. Jesus cannot stop this from moving beyond. Mark seems to take the story into high gear and now shifting him to go over to the region of the Decapolis, another Gentile territory. There, a man who was born deaf and unable to speak now is brought to Jesus. He is in the inside of his community. His peers are the ones who touch him, grab him, and bring him to Jesus to stand him right in front of Jesus. But also, in a sense, he is an outsider in his own community. Can you imagine being on the inside and feeling like you are on the outside? Can you imagine being a part of maybe a church community your whole life, or maybe you've been here for a couple of years, but you still do not feel like you are a part of the community? That something about you has not been accepted yet. that you are not a part of the mold quite yet. You know that there might be whispers behind your back. Maybe you haven't been invited to the table with others. You do not fit the status quo. Maybe you feel like that this world, despite telling you you're welcomed, still feels corrupt and broken. Be strong, do not fear. Here is your God. God will come with vengeance, with terrible recompense. God will come and save you. Then the eyes of the blind shall be opened, and the ears of the deaf unstopped. Then the lame shall leap like a deer, and the tongue of the speechless sing for joy. When God comes, all things that separate us from community will fall away. Do not ostracize the blind, the deaf, or speechless. Do not hold at arm's length the woman who needs help. Do not look at others as though they do not even deserve the crumbs under the table, Jesus says. For the table of God is open to all, and we are all called to welcome people, any and everyone, to the table, to the house, into the family, into our lives. Maybe we do not yet fully understand the scope and the scale of the mission of God to humanity. I would hope that we would continue to tell ourselves that we don't get it, that we are still knocking on the door trying to figure it out. Once we say we understand who is welcome, then we have forgotten to keep on looking out. Jesus is now realizing that the people of Tyre are welcomed in. The Syrophoenicians, how dare they, are now a part of the people of God. Who are we not welcoming? How do we become more welcoming? Very soon, in a couple of weeks, we're going to start welcoming in new people to our community. Many of these people have actually been here for, some of them, a couple of years, some of them a couple of weeks. They're going to bring with them different traditions, different life stories, different places of worship, different songs, different traditions. How do we welcome people into this place? Sometimes when we welcome in new people, it means that we too have to become new to ourselves. We need to figure out what is it that they like to do in worship. Maybe we can be changed too. Maybe we can continue to be broken open and to welcome the newness of God into our life. Maybe we can continue to be made new. Who is welcomed into the community? Take a deep look at ourselves and see how we can grow to be more like Jesus to our neighbors, to be more like Jesus to the people even already here in this church. If you don't know yet how you can be more like Jesus to those outside of the walls, just start here. Start with the people in the pew next to you, or the pew in front of you, or the pew all the way up to the top. Just start here. Continue to learn how to draw people into your life. Continue to learn how to make more room for others at the table. Start here. Find compassion for those who may feel like they are on the outside right here. Open up to others about maybe when you have felt on the outside. Start here. For there is an abundance at God's table, more than enough for everyone. Let's begin here by welcoming everyone. Amen.